sitting outside. Yeah, appreciate it. I love the heat. Thankfully, we do have the tent here thanks to Catch. One thing I wanted to say before we even got started was obviously I want to introduce myself. My name is Matt Ibanez, avid Mets fan, very thankful to the QBC for allowing me to share a desk, share a stage with the great Howie Rose. Never thought in a million years, I'd be able to share a desk and have a conversation with someone I respect as much as I do him. I'm going to start things off by asking what I think is probably the most important question that's on all of our minds is, how are you? How is your health? How is everything in that sense?
I'm good, thank you. Just missed a few games last week because of COVID. It's COVID in here. But just a couple of days trying to ward off smallpox and diphtheria. Hopefully I'll be able to manage that.
Every day it's always something new. I was going to start something off with a very all-encompassing question. So many years, a spectacular career that you've had to this point. 1995 to 2002, you're on the TV broadcast side. You go over, you replace Bob Murphy, you head to the booth. You've been in the booth now for 20 years?
Radio booth?
Radio booth.
Well, full time, before was the first year, so this will be the 20th.
20 years. Is it crazy how time is?
Yes. Let's hear it. It's not flying by. The whole thing is crazy because as you get older, I'm 70 in February. You know, you step back and you go, goodness, these memories I have that seem so recent are long time ago. And the good memories are still vivid. You know, people say, how do you remember this, that, and the other thing from all those years ago, even back in the 60s and 70s when we were a fan. And games really dictate your mood, day by day, night by night. They make an impact. You remember that. But as I get older now, there are games from last week where I'd be pressed to remember certain details. But that's just, you know, that's the way it is.
Because I can definitely attest to that, because since I became a father, the way that time does fly, it's incredible. I just felt like it was yesterday where I had my first girl, and she's over 2.5, and I just had my second, and I just turned 1 last week.
The girl, Dad, me too.
I figured you'd be able to really bond with me.
Right under there. Right?
Exactly. Under the thumb already, everything that they want. But it is crazy how you get older, you do realize how time flies, especially when you're a father. It's incredible. But I did mention TV. I have to bring this up because it was brought up in the beginning of this season. Gary and Keith were talking about it. They brought you up, and I said,
That could have been good.
once I found out that I was doing this, was one of the first questions I wrote down. I said, I was very curious on his response here. I know you answered on radio, but I missed it because I was watching you broadcast on television. And they were harping on you when it came to, in the beginning of the season, everyone was talking about how they thought they were going to be, and they're saying, oh, it's going to be worse than the 62 Mets, and they were going to break the record and all these things. And Gary brought it up. Keith was ragging on you a little bit.
Gary was with me.
He was with you on it. Keith was ragging a little bit, but I was just curious if you can let everyone know, why is it so important to you that that team holds on to that?
I don't mean to be condescending about it, but you had to be there. You had to be, I don't mean necessarily just 1962, but I really think that to understand everything that the Mets represented from the very beginning, how comically bad they were, and yet how beloved they were, there's something about 40 and 120 that morphed into a world championship 7 years later that it's almost symmetrical. You know, it just, 40 and 120 was beautiful in its own way. And that's just because they were a gift to all of those disenfranchised fans who lost the Giants and Dodgers. So it didn't matter what the Mets did the first few years, they were going to be embraced, eventually beloved. And to go from that to 1969, in an era where you couldn't buy a team, where expansion meant you were getting the worst of the worst of every organization, and you had to be patient, you had to develop talent, and to be the best of a lot of those organic expansion teams to win a world championship. 40 and 20 means a lot. It means a lot because it represents what they came from. And so there'll always be the 62 Mets, even if Oakland loses 121 or wins 39, whatever. But I'd like to see the 62 Mets continually looked at as the worst team in baseball in history because of what 1969 represented coming from 62.
I had a feeling that you were going to respond and say that.
And Gary gets that.
He's not.
No, I think I'm not being disparaging towards Keith.
Yeah.
He can't understand if you weren't here, you just couldn't possibly get it, no matter how many books or articles you read.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was definitely going to be it had to be their type of understanding, because when I think of myself, obviously I wasn't there for that. And I'm 34 years old, and I'm so used to the Mets being viewed as a negative connotation is always thrown that way. So I think a lot of fans now assume they would want that erased to try and lose the idea of a losing franchise, a losing mentality. They want to get rid of things of that nature.
But what they
for
can't
years
understand
before,
is how beloved that team was for what they represented. And remember, there were some basically old Brooklyn Dodger heroes, most notably Gil Hodges, who were embraced from the very beginning by the fans. Tom Singer was an original vet, and there were others, but there was a link to New York baseball history that those 62 Mets represent.
when it comes to continue the conversation, when it comes to memories and things that are established, obviously we all think about a changeover when it came to this team. It's something that you experienced because you were a fan going there as a kid, and then obviously in the booth, we go from Shea and we move into City. Now, a question that I've always had, like I said, I never thought I'd have a chance to ask you, but when it came to that changeover, they go there in 2009, how all the memories that you have from Shea from the early 60s on, when it came to City, how long, I know my answer, I'm sure everyone here has their own answer. How long did it take for you, for City, to finally feel like home for the Mets?
I'll tell you exactly when. It was the weekend in 2015, and that was our second year at Citi Field. But the weekend, the Mets swept the Washington Nationals and basically just blew right past them on the way to winning the National League East. It was the first time, and I remember remarking on the air, this is the first time that Citi Field sounds like shit. Now remember, there are roughly 13,000 fewer seats in Citi Field. However, it's a more intimate park, as we know. And finally, I got to hear a decibel level at Shea Stadium. And you got to realize, too, the demographics of the crowd has changed over the years, not just here, everywhere, because ticket prices are much higher than they used to be everywhere. I'm not just talking about the Mets in New York. That used to say that what used to be a beer and hot dog crowd had kind of morphed into a wine and cheese crowd. And again, nowadays you can go on various, whether it's I guess via the Mets or StubHub or wherever you get tickets on the secondary market now. For all the people who say, "Oh, it costs you $150 to go to a game," you pick the right game, you get it for $6 or $8. It's not like every ticket is going to send you to the poorhouse necessarily, but it's affected the volume of games that fans go to, and I just think that the decibel level is not quite what it was. I think that's largely a function of ticket prices, but anyway, I think when you win, and win as dramatically as that team did very often in 15, it'll sound pretty good.
I know people can't see it, but I literally got chills when he said that week when it came to the Nats and City game 2015, the home that we all been waiting for. It's the same thing for me. 2015, it started to finally feel like home, which is crazy because it did open in 2009, and it was August 2nd. That game against the Nats, I was in the building. It was a Sunday night game. I was there. I was in that field. It was incredible. People were after the 3 home runs. The sound, like you said, it reached another level. And it was incredible. People were throwing accolades. The place was just going absolutely insane. And obviously, we saw the run that the team went on. But I do find it crazy that I think a lot of people might also agree that 2015 was finally the start of it, feeling like home.
Well, it came out cold.
It really did.
Because I remember just before the trade deadline, I think we all remember everything that happened around then. I mean, you had a lineup where was it Eric Campbell was about to clean up, and I mean, you just had
John Mayberry Jr.
Yeah, they couldn't compete. I mean, that was not a competitive lineup offensively, but Sandy dug his heels in and said, "All right, we're going to fix this." Boy, did he!
I always think back to that season when I came to the Reds when Steven Matz came up and he was the one providing all the offense for himself. At that point in the game, because he ended up going out and getting like 4 RBIs because Eric Campbell was batting third and John Mayberry was batting fourth. He went out there and did his job to help himself, but absolutely an incredible season nonetheless. On the topic of 2015, good segment. No matter what, I always think of that season because for me, I was finally able to really appreciate something because, in 2000, I understood what was going on when I was a middle school kid. As you get older, you appreciate more things. And forever in my mind, I'm sure for many here, your call when the Mets won the pennant in 15 years, I still get chills to this day. I love that call. It means so much to me. For you, when it comes to making those types of calls and doing the job that you do, like you said, 20 plus years now, do you still get those butterflies?
Yeah, big moment.
Big moment. Still get those butterflies when you make those calls?
Oh, sure. I remember it was in 2015 before we were in Philadelphia. It was the game that David Wright came back from that long time away. And I can't remember now. That's what I mean. I think it was his first time. Was it his first or second time? It was the second time. When he hit the home run.
First time.
It was the first time? Yeah. Okay, so he hits that home run into the second deck in Philly. It's a 2-tiered ballpark. It's bang. And the minute it left his bat, you knew. I mean, that was and I told David after the game, got on the bus with the team to go back to the hotel. I turned David to sit right behind him. And I said, I got to tell you something. I said, there have been a handful, if that, of times in my career where I actually got goosebumps as I was making a call. And David is so beloved not only by the fan base, but by us too, because he treated us like gold. And he's just such a special person that we all felt so good for him, apart from what that home run in that game and everything else meant to the Mets. I just turned to him and said, I can count on one hand the number of times that I've gotten goosebumps while making a call. And the thing about David is that he got a little emotional and choked up and said, wow, I can't tell you how much that means to me. So yeah, there are still moments where you are totally awash in their significance. And if you have any kind of an emotional attachment, as I certainly do with club, they mean that much more.
It's fantastic. I'm glad that you brought up David because there's one thing I wanted to bring up when it came to City and Shea. Obviously, we knew David was a superstar when it came to the dimensions of Shea and right center field and things of that nature. I think you have an idea where I'm going with this.
Yeah, right center.
When it came to City Field aesthetically and how it was built in the beginning, obviously we've seen a lot of changes since, but do you think that those original dimensions were a little bit improper when the star of our team's main source of power was right center? We made some cabinets.
Well, that's your word. My word would be absurd. It had nothing to do with David. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the pitcher's park. My Fred's former pitcher, if he wanted a pitcher's park, which is fine. But 415 to right center is one thing. But as you point out, not that you build it just for that few years where your best players in his prime, but, well, yeah. I mean, you've got a team that had been a contending team. Obviously, 07 and 08 did not end well, but they still figured to be a contender in 09. And then you get to that ballpark, and David Wright's power is to right center, and it's 415 out there. What's the point? And I remember distinctly, I think it was David rather than Chipper who told me this, but Mets playing the Braves, and David's at third base. Chipper Jones is up. I don't remember if he was batting left-handed or right-handed. It doesn't matter. But he absolutely drills one that's caught right in front of the wall, right at the 415 mark. And as Chip was jogging back to the third base dugout, he passes David, and David's got this little smirk on his face. He goes, "Great ballpark, huh?" So you know it got to David. And thankfully they brought the fences. But the fences changed the aesthetic of the park a little bit too. I'm all for a park that's not a bandbox like some of them were, going a few miles from here, especially to right field. It doesn't have to be that, but it didn't need to be what it was at Citi Field.
One final thing when it came to City in the beginning, I know it was a talking point for a lot of fans. Did it bother you at all when it came to the colors? When it came to City?
Do you know? Here's a piece of trivia question. A piece of trivia for you. This was told to me by one of the Mets' highest among the hierarchy, who was not part of ownership. When that ballpark opened, I said, "How do we describe the color of the left field wall?" He said, and I quote, "Soot." SOOT. Soot. I said, "So what is there, a template, or what do they call them when the painter? Palette. Yeah. I said, "Is there the name on the palette? Soot." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, your call." I didn't mind the green seats at all because I like the way that replicated the look of the whole ballpark. But I think everything else should. I think the fence should have improved from the beginning. We should have made a lot more, as we all know, Mets-centric things around the ballpark. And to their credit, I don't know what possessed them to do it like that in the first place, but to their credit, to his credit, Jeff Wilpon came to me. We were in Denver that first year, '09, and the team had fallen apart. The fans were not very happy about the lack of Mets representation in the park. So Jeff, as he would from time to time, I got along great with Jeff. And I have nothing but great things to say about ownership there because I knew them since 1980, and they treated my family and me like gold. Still do. Even a couple of years ago when I got sick, Fred reached out, and he'd already sold the team by then. He said, "Look, I'm on every board, various voices, any place I need to get you into, and yada, yada, yada." So the Wilpon family is very special to me, and it's easy for people to dump on them, but I just have a bond with them that will be eternal. And Jeff came to me in Denver and said, "Look, we got to fix this place up, beating Citi Field, make it more Met-centric. What can we do?" And he approached Gary and a couple of others too along the way. But we gave some ideas, which initially were met with, "I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if we can do that." And everything he said, "I don't know if we can do that," they did. So thankfully, they had their intent open to that. And the place now, from everything they've done outside the park, inside the park, you're in the home.
If there's one question I will ask about the ideas that were put forth, did you recommend a statue for Tom?